Hey, what's up guys, I'm here at MonsterGadgets. Welcome to episode number 24 of Tutorial Thursdays. And thank you so much for joining me. If you are a new viewer, please consider subscribing and liking my video. If you are a return viewer, thank you so much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. So today we're going to be talking about Lightroom, and I'm going to be sharing with you guys just 5 quick hacks or tips, tricks, whatever you're going to call it, for Lightroom that I think will make a significant difference in your workflow, and some things that are just kind of small little things that again are impactful but worth sharing. So let's go ahead and jump into Adobe Lightroom after this intro. Alright guys, so here we are in Adobe Lightroom, and the number one trick, the first one I'm going to share with you guys. I just found this out not too long ago. I used to use Adobe Photoshop for just some light touch-ups and then transfer them into Adobe Lightroom. But in Adobe Lightroom, you can actually do a spot heal as well. So I didn't know about that. I found out about it, like I said, just a few months ago. So let me show you what that looks like. All you do is hit Q on your keyboard, and it's going to give you this little target. All you do is select an area that you want to be able to heal. So for example, we'll just go ahead and heal maybe this watermark. Let's just say you want to get rid of that. So I'm just going to go ahead and click, and it's going to give us that paint little option. So it's going to select that area, and then it's going to tell you where you want to pull from to replace it. So I'm going to go ahead and drag, and let's just say I'm going to put it to where I think it looks good. So if you move it around, you guys can see how that particular area is changing. So let's just say if I leave it here and let go, then that part right here is being replaced by this part right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit done, and look, that spot is gone. So for quick spot heals, you can do it right in Lightroom. You don't have to export it out to Adobe Photoshop. This can be done in Lightroom. So that is tip number 1. Tip number 2, let's look at the background that's actually here behind this image. So by default, Adobe Lightroom gives you this medium gray. So all you got to do is right click on anywhere you see this background, and you can actually pick a different color. If you wanted it black, you can do black. If you wanted it white, you can do white. Light gray, light gray. Any of these colors you can pick from, and depending on what image you have and what really works well for you while editing, you can pick between these colors and not have to be stuck with just gray. So I know a lot of times people, when you post on Instagram, you post on other platforms, by default the background image is white. So if you want to work in the white space and be able to edit and see what that looks like once you transfer it out of here, well, now you got that option too, so it's in there. So go ahead and right click on it, pick any of the colors that work best for you, and make it work. So that is tip number 2. Tip number 3 is, let's say we edit an image. Let's just say for the sake of it, I'm just going to turn the exposure up, bring the shadows down, put the highlights up, and that looks pretty crappy. Actually, that looks pretty bad. But for the sake of example, we're just going to use it as that. So if you hit the backslash key and keep it pressed, that'll give you a before, and if you let go, that'll give you an after. So again, press it to get a before, and let it go to give you an example of what the current one looks like. So if you wanted to do a quick edit and see how much of an edit you've actually made and look at your previous one, you can simply just hit the backslash key, which is on your Mac right above your return. It looks like a backslash. That's what the key looks like. So that's what it is. So hit that to get that look. So that is tip number 3. Moving on to tip number 4. So this one is kind of different. I use it sometimes and sometimes I don't. So when you take a photo and you put it into Lightroom, what you can do is sometimes with the lens that you're using, there might be some imperfections and you want to correct that. So basically, if you scroll all the way down, it's going to give you this option for lens corrections. And in here, if you just select and check off enable profile corrections, sometimes it'll fill these in depending on the file, if it's able to read the file off your camera, and sometimes it's not. So if I go in and just basically select Canon, because that's what I use, it'll go ahead and select the model and the profile to correct it. Now you can do it manually here as well, but it'll do a default correction, and that really helps to remove some of the imperfections that are in your photo. So use that, sometimes it comes in handy. All right, the last and final one, radial selection. All right, so radial selection, what is that? So let's go ahead and on top here on your right hand side, you will see a bunch of different options. And what allow you to do is if you select one of these, the radial filter, it's going to give you a whole separate set of presets. And what you can do is you can basically mess around with these to what you think is appropriate. But the first thing you want to do is you want to make a selection. So I'm just going to go ahead and select, and I'm just going to move it over. So let's just say I wanted to work on this particular image. So for example, if I go ahead and turn my exposure up, only things that are within this particular circle are going to get affected. So it's not going to affect the whole image. So if there's areas of the image you want to be able to maybe turn the exposure on, you simply just make that selection and you can go ahead and turn up the exposure for that selection. What you can also do is, let's just say you wanted to keep one portion of it the same, but you wanted to change everything around it. Guess what? You just scroll down and you can select invert. So now if I make any changes, everything within the circle stays the same, but now I've got the option to change all these settings outside of that circle. So if I wanted to put the exposure down, I can put the exposure down and not affect the area within. And again, if you use an invert, then the invert will basically convert everything within the circle and leave everything outside the same. So play around with that. This can come in handy in a lot of situations where you only want to have certain areas of the picture affected, and this filter comes in extremely handy. So play around with it. A lot of things you can do, a lot of creative things you can do with it. But until you play around with it, get comfortable with it, you won't be able to use it. So keep that in mind. All right, those were the 5 things. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a big thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.